Good morning to my Facebook Live tribe. It's 11 o'clock Saturday morning, and I'm so excited to be here again. I'm doing my Facebook Live today without earphones, so just let me know if you can hear me, if I'm clear, and yeah, and who's here. I'd love to see who has joined me this morning, where I'm going to be talking about anhedonia. Anhedonia, this very interesting word that a friend of mine, we were talking about it just yesterday morning, and what does it mean? And she said to me, and she's a wordsmith, hedonism. So it must be anti-hedonism. And it's quite interesting that that came up because hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure, feeling too much pleasure, being pleasure focused. And anhedonia really is the opposite. It's when we have the inability to feel pleasure, to feel joy, when life has lost its purpose and we just have no color to our life. We have no emotions. We feel flat. It's often what causes major depressive disorder. But very interesting, and why it's relevant for us is that it also is very common in people who give up addictive substances. And it usually hits at about 2 months after giving up an addictive substance. So, good morning, Vanessa. So good to see you here. Just let me know if you can hear me clearly. Ah, great, Pauline. Awesome to see you. Hi, my Lucy. All clear, fantastic. And Sue, good morning. And Janet, Annika, sound is clear, wonderful. Diane, yeah, can't hear about this topic. I feel dopamine challenged. You are at the right place, Diane. I've become so dopamine obsessed. So I'm going to tell you why and how we can generate our dopamine. And just so happy to see you all, Merlene and Lucy having to go for a COVID test. Oh my gosh, we are with you. We hope it's negative. So much of life happens. And when life happens, we need our dopamine. We need to be able to dance with life and hit back those balls and roll with the punches. But if we are feeling emotionally flat, it's very difficult to do. So let me get right on it and talk to you about anhedonia. So why it happens to us who have been addicted to substances is that our brain gets used to, for example, alcohol providing the dopamine, and then gets lazy and no longer produces dopamine. And we become dopamine deficient when we stop drinking or any other drug that we may be taking. But for us, I'm going to focus today on alcohol. So we become dopamine deficient, and our brain and our body has become lazy and is no longer creating enough dopamine. And after about 2 months, we hit a really flat spot. We feel depressed. We feel like we can't get out of bed. We feel like, what is this all about? Some symptoms are when you start to just not even want to engage anymore, when you are in a crowd or you're with people and you're just faking your emotions. Those are all signs that anhedonia is coming into play. And what we want to do today is we want to prepare for it. So if you're at the beginning of your journey, it's a beautiful time to actually get a plan of action in place. Know that it is most likely going to come, but if you prepare for it, it's not going to be that hectic. And it might not even come. You might be able to negotiate it, and definitely it won't increase that flatness. What I've noticed and Janet has noticed is so many times in the tribe when people are doing well, about 2 months, 3 months later, they hit this tipping point where they feel flat, and that is such a trigger for relapse. So we want to really guard ourselves against that, plan against it, and put in our success plan. And that is what this morning's talk is about. So how do we do it? If you are already feeling flat, if you are there are ways for you to get your dopamine flowing quite quickly. And one of them is to put yourself in a bit of a stressful situation. For example, doing something brave or courageous. So engage your courage muscle. It could be like what one of our tribe members did, is go into a major park in London and shout out while being videoed, "I have given up drinking." And everybody was, and it was so brave, but that adrenaline rush and that bit of excitement creates enough dopamine release in the brain so that you feel a bit more energized. Another way to do it is to not ruminate in bed. So if you're feeling like you can't get out of bed and you're just feeling so flat, Mel Robbins has the 5-second rule, which I found brilliant in the beginning. It's counting backwards. It's launching yourself like a rocket out of bed. So when you wake up, immediately it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch and get into action. Dopamine is released when we get into action. So one of the shortages of dopamine that gets caused by us not drinking and no longer producing dopamine, we want to get that flowing again. So what actually happens to our brains when we are dopamine deficient? This is so interesting I found this very interesting, and that is after years of substance abuse and becoming dopamine deficient, certain parts in the brain shrink, like the amygdala, which is your fight or flight center, your prefrontal cortex, which is your decision making, which is your logical brain, shrinks. Your hippocampus, where your memories are made, where your emotions are stored and released, where your dopamine actually flows, shrinks. And what they have found in people who have Alzheimer's, when they look at their brains or cognitive decline, the hippocampus has shrunk. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that you can regrow these part of the brains. And that is what I'm going to talk to you about, having a plan. How are we going to regrow our hippocampus, our memories, our amygdala, our fight or flight? How are we going to learn to really re-engage our prefrontal cortex, grow it, get it thriving again, get our brain healthy again? And to do that, I want you to also understand that we are a complete system. We are not just our brains, we are also our bodies. Our body and our brain is like a loop. It runs, one fires the other. So dopamine is also created in our gut and serotonin and through our nutrition. So we need to just have a look how we can engage all of it. But the first part, the most important part, is to get into some kind of action. So that is your first plan. Get out of bed, jump out of bed, leap out of bed, launch out of bed, get into action. And the second thing that you can do is you can create adrenaline. So what that does is when you jump out of bed and you get into action, you're actually creating adrenaline. And adrenaline is the friend of dopamine. Adrenaline and dopamine together give us motivation, give us the go, give us the juice to get into action. So, and adrenaline gets produced by our adrenals. What is so interesting about that is we often talk about adrenal fatigue or burnout and that we don't have enough cortisol, and that's actually not true. Apparently, our adrenals can create enough adrenaline and cortisol to last us 200 years. So we just need to re-engage it. We just need to learn to use it and not overuse it, where we do get fatigue, the opposite. So everything in balance is wonderful. When we overdo things, we can create the opposite effect. Okay. So the first step, the first way to treat anhedonia is get out of bed, launch out of bed, get your adrenaline going, do something crazy, maybe even go into a lift and backwards, or just do something different. Ask for a free meal in a restaurant. One of my friends who's a coach and runs a program called the Flow Experiment. What she encourages people to do is to do something brave and courageous every day that's out of your comfort zone. What is so interesting is the hippocampus is really where our comfort zone, it's at the edge of our brain. It's at the center and it goes to the edge, the temporal lobes, almost like the edges. So we need to really push our edges, get out of our comfort zones. Beautiful way to stimulate dopamine. The second part, the second thing you can do is get into exercise, aerobic exercise, or strength training is brilliant for getting dopamine flowing. And why it does this is because when you exercise and you get your heart rate up, and you create that tension of the exercise, it's creating a tension in your body and in your brain that releases a protein called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotropic factor. Brain-derived neurotropic factor. That's like compost or fertilizer for the brain. That's what helps your brain grow. Like protein helps your muscles grow when you go to the gym and you do strength training. BDNF is the fertilizer that gets your hippocampus growing again. It gets your amygdala growing. It gets your prefrontal cortex and your decision making growing. So those parts, and it gets your dopamine flowing. It helps build new cells in the brain. So that is why exercise is so important. You stop drinking, you want to get on an exercise program, do strength training, do aerobic exercise, get out there and get the fertilizer for the brain going. Then the third part is that you can focus on your nutrition. You want to eat protein-rich foods. And protein-rich foods that release an amino acid called tyrosine. And tyrosine is actually what helps us create dopamine through nutrition. So as you see, we are this like beautiful organism where when we don't have enough dopamine flowing through our brain, we can also engage our body and we can engage nutrition. So get very good nutrition. Foods that are rich in tyrosine are, for example, turkey, soy, dairy, legumes. So bring that in. Fish oil. Fish oil is brilliant as a supplement for the brain, helping the brain regrow. So take supplements like fish oil, vitamin B. Vitamin B gets depleted when we drink too much. It helps us regulate our nervous system. Get a really good slow release vitamin B supplement. The fourth thing you can do. So now the first thing is you leap out of bed. I'm just recapping here. You get your adrenaline going. The second one, you start exercising and getting aerobic exercise and your BDNF fertilizer going. The third is you focus on your nutrition. The fourth is meditation. We learn how to manage our stress. We need to start regulating from the top down. And the way we do it is through learning to use our prefrontal cortex, our curiosity, we learn to regulate our biology. Our breath work is another really good way to do this. So meditation will bring the cortisol levels down. It'll bring the heart rate down. It'll bring us into calm and peace. So as much as we need the dopamine for the adrenaline and for getting us motivated, we also need the here and now neurotransmitters. which are your serotonin, your oxytocin, your endorphins. All of that also needs to kick in for us to feel good in the here and now, what I call the Goldilocks moment, to get to that very beautiful baseline where everything is good, we are calm, we are in the here and now, we can enjoy the moment. Meditation, going for a walk, a slow walk, being in nature is very helpful for that. Helps us learn to deal with stress. Breathwork, you all know I'm quite passionate about breathwork. Breathwork is a beautiful way that we can actually regulate from the top down. We can regulate our heart beats. When we are too hyperactive, we can use a very long out breath to bring us back. So we do two short in breaths through the nose and a long out breath through the mouth. Will bring you very quickly into the here and now if you're feeling very hyper. If you're feeling very low on energy, you want to do the opposite. You can create a very long, deep in breath and hold it for as long as you can. Short out breath, long in breath, short out breath. Do about 3 of those and then go back into your normal breathing. That is how you can regulate your energy and your nervous system in terms of bringing it back to the baseline, back into calm, peace, and the here and now. So number 5, what you need to bring in is meaningful social interactions, or ways to bring in your oxytocin, your connection, which has been very challenging to do in this last year with COVID, where we are no longer hugging each other, where we are keeping social distancing, we are very aware, we are very scared of getting COVID, and that is not really helping us with our oxytocin. But there are ways that we can still feel that connection. And if you are living on your own, it's a really good idea to have a pet. And a pet that you can stroke, that you can have a connection with, that you can love, getting onto calls with friends, sharing, not isolating, going for walks, scheduling a walk with a friend, finding ways to interact with other people. Maybe joining a course online even, but ways that you are finding connection and you're feeling connected. So for me, one of the ways that I really got my oxytocin kick was through biodanza, where for me, it was like such a beautiful all-round thing. There was a lot of hugging, there was a lot of touching, there was a lot of dancing, there was a lot of discomfort. So all of those beautiful neurotransmitters would be released in a biodanza class, and I would come back home and say, I've had my oxytocin and my endorphin kick for the week. I feel so good. So find ways to stimulate that in your life. Number 6 is thought work. And it's so important to become aware of how our thoughts influence our dopamine. A lot of negative beliefs. So a thought that you keep on thinking becomes your belief. And if your thoughts are always about everything going wrong for you, and you have a kind of a negative outlook on life, it actually shortens your telomeres in your brain. So it's almost the same as what happens with alcohol or substance abuse. A lot of negative thoughts create low dopamine. So we want to, and thoughts are not something that you can just control. So Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist, says that trying to control your thoughts is like trying to catch fog. You're not going to be able to do it. However, what you can do is you can bring in anchor thoughts. You can bring in new thoughts that you can believe. And that is so powerful. An anchor thought could be, while you are in the flatlining, the emotional flatlining, and you're not feeling much joy, my brain is recalibrating versus nothing's changed. I might as well start drinking again. I should be feeling better. Bring in the anchor thought. My brain is healing itself. My brain is regrowing cells so that I can get the dopamine inflow. What can I do? That stimulates motivation. So, thought work is very important in creating dopamine, creating excitement. Just think about falling in love with somebody, how much dopamine we get released then from the excitement of it, just by thinking of the other person, not even by being with them, just thinking of them. So you can do that. You can hack your brain in that way that you can bring in those anchor thoughts. And the last one is really coaching. I'm passionate about coaching. I was just saying to a client of mine yesterday, I have three coaches. I have my coach who I've coached with for almost 4 years now, who knows me so well, who I have so much trust with. We coach once a month. I have a functional medicine coach who's now coaching me through my kidney issues and some of my health issues. And we also look at how we can create more dopamine and serotonin through foods. And then I have a breath coach. So who helps me really work with my breathing and help to self-regulate myself more. So I have three coaches. So coaching, a coach can really help you be your thinking partner to create your success plan. You stop drinking. Now, how are you going to plan for anhedonia? How are you going to plan to get your dopamine supply flowing, your serotonin, your oxytocin? And you put an action plan in place that really looks at these 6 major things that you need to do and keeps you accountable. And when things are not working, because nothing is an exact science, you can tweak and you can try and you can reflect what is really going on for you. So that is it from me this morning. So remember actions very quickly. Don't ruminate in bed. Exercise. Get your fertilizer going, your BD and F. And get good nutrition. Meditate. Breath work. Thought work. Get your oxytocin through connection. Remember, the opposite of addiction is connection. Find ways to connect. Do thought work and get a coach. And as you know, with World Without Wine, if you become a member, you actually get a complimentary coaching session. So why not engage that? Engage with your creating a success plan, planning for anhedonia, and making sure that your journey is one filled with healing, recalibrating, beautiful new neural pathways, and creating a life really that you don't want to escape from, that you want to engage with. Okay, so let me see what comments I've got here this morning. Okay. Okay, yes, we are hedonists, isn't it? We're always chasing the buzz. And then when having to chase, we're no longer able to chase the buzz and we need to find our own buzz. It becomes a different challenge, but we can do it. I often say that we can get high on our own supply, and I mean the breath. Hi. Hi, Angela. You've made it. Yay. So good to see you here. Very brave you've been. And Tessa, again, good to see you. And we're going to go biohacking. Luce. Okay, I love this. We might just scare our family members jumping out of bed, and I love it when we can bring in the humor. Why not? Humor is another way of really releasing dopamine. So, yeah, if you're going to get people laughing, you can even getting a fright. Not only are you going to get dopamine, so the people that you're going to give a fright, you're going to get a fright when you leap out of bed. So let me know, Angela, when you leap out of bed, what happens? I would love to hear that. And I have a rule: there's no warm thoughts. That's no horizontal thinking. Get out of bed. And of course, another really good thing to look at is sleep. We also need to get good sleep. Yes, Tessa, you are 2/3 there. You've come home from a run, you've eaten nuts and yogurt. Awesome, awesome. And I'm sure that you are just feeling so good. And I'm looking forward to see you all at the Zoom Cafe today. It's in South Africa. I think it's 4:30 South African time. Hugging. Yeah, I find my ways to hug. I do. I would miss hugging too much. So I've got friends that I can hug and that I meet, and it's just wonderful. Pet therapy, when you are alone, having a pet, it's so beautiful for oxytocin release, learning to love, learning to be. And anhedonia can come. It comes usually in about the second month, but it also comes in waves. So often people will ask, so how long does it last? It can last anything up to a year, 2 years, but it'll come less and less. As your brain starts to regulate, as you start deliberately creating your dopamine, you'll find that the waves are shorter. At one point, I would find almost every second week I would go into a dip. And when I learned how to negotiate that and work with it, that every second week became longer and longer. Every second month became longer and longer. So it also it depends really on how long you've been drinking, and how much regrowth the brain has to do. But here's the good thing. Here's the good news. We are all giving up drinking. We're realizing how dopamine works. We're realizing that we need to regrow our hippocampus, our prefrontal cortex, our amygdala, and that we can regrow the brain through healthy steps and measures. And we're going to have these beautiful, healthy brains. So many people who don't have substance abuse issues actually don't know this, and lead very sedentary lives where they don't get into much action. And Merlina saying, thought work, oh dear, this is where all my efforts seem to fail. Thought work is beautiful work, because when we can bring up, interestingly enough, a thought that we keep on thinking becomes a belief. So we need to challenge our beliefs and highlight them, because beliefs that we think over and over also create a certain chemistry in our body that our body feels good with. Doesn't really mean that it's going to give us the dopamine, but it does mean that our body is used to it. Our body is used to that feeling of, oh, so we need to start really becoming conscious. It's just another aspect of how we become the best version of ourselves. And I think really, as I close, this whole journey is about having a compelling future self. When you decide to stop drinking, to get your life back in order, you want to create a beautiful vision of who you're going to be, how you're going to show up, how you want to live. And all of these steps are just going to enhance that. Oh, Geraldine. Yeah, catching fog. Yeah, I've tried that too. I thought I've got to control my thoughts. I've got to. No, let them also waft. Let the thoughts waft like fog. Stretching my telomeres. Oh, yes. Love it. So when the anhedonia strikes, let's reframe that as a sign that the brain is healing. Yes, let's do that. And the brain loves a bit of hard, which is, again, when I spoke about it in the beginning, where you want to go and do something courageous, the brain loves it. Go and do something courageous today. I challenge each one of you that's here today. Do one thing today that's going to take a bit of courage and that's going to be out of your comfort zone. So love you all. Thank you for being here. Have an awesome Saturday and see some of you later at the Zoom cafe. Bye.